Gang. Blouses.
All right, what's up, everybody? We're going to do some divisional predictions. All right, we're going to get right into it. I'm starting in the Eastern Conference. Let's take a look at what they looked like last year. This is the 2022 season. We get the Celtics on top, then the 76ers, Knicks, Nets, and the Raptors. A lot of these aren't going to shake up that much, I don't think, but here's my prediction for this year. I got Boston at 1 again. I still think I think they're the best team, 1 to 5. They're the most sure team regarding health. I believe they're probably one of the more healthier teams in that division right now, I'd say. No guys coming off any big significant injuries from previous seasons or the playoffs last year, like some of the other guys in the middle of the pack were. And also, I just think they're the most complete team. Every position has a guy that can go out there and create great opportunities and great shots for each other. So I'm going Boston 1. I'm actually going to go New York 2. I'm going to go Philly 3, Brooklyn 4, and Toronto 5. So my Eastern Conference predictions are as follows right over here. And let me know what you think. I think this division's a little. It's very top heavy. I say that with 3 of these teams for sure are going to be top 5, maybe top 3 in the East. 2 of them will be top 3. Potentially, that's at least what Boston and Philly have done the past couple of seasons. However, we have to take into consideration the availability of James Harden. What's going to happen with that? Is he going to play anymore for the Sixers? Obviously, the news broke this week that he was spending time in Houston. He missed last Friday's preseason game, which was a lot of coaches and a lot of players and reporters and just NBA fans all around the world were marking that preseason game as, is this guy going to play? I don't think he is. I think they're going to try to seek out a trade and ride it out with Tyrese Maxey. And look, you still got to think Joel Embiid is the reigning MVP. They're not going to be a slouchy team. They might be less complete and less dangerous without James Harden, but can they still win 45 to 50 games next year? Yeah, absolutely. I think they could with just Joel Embiid. Now, again, his health comes into question. I know he's been hurt. And, last year, miraculously, when he won the MVP, he decided to suit up again. I don't know what that was all about. We'll leave that to the Philly fans to decide, but I don't know. I think there's more going on in Philly than we really want to admit, whether we're a fan of that team or not. Yeah, again, New York at the 2 spot. I like this team a lot. I think they're young, they're lengthy, they're athletic, they're out there with something to prove. Obviously, the Heat came in the playoffs last year and just spanked everybody. I mean, granted, I don't think they beat anybody at full strength, but every Heat fan will tell you the same thing about their team, that they weren't at full strength, which is true. No Harrow, which ended up helping them on the defensive end. And potentially Jimmy being banged up as always. That's what everyone says. But I don't know. I think New York is a lot deeper than we think. I think Emmanuel Quickly is up there in high odds to win potentially the 6th man of the year. So this could be his breakout season. Who knows? Maybe Julius Randle continues. Maybe Jalen Brunson is back to 100% and he's out there doing the things that he was doing in Dallas when Luka went down. So we'll see. The bottom half of this, Brooklyn, Toronto could really be a toss-up. I think the Raptors still aren't bad enough to be a pick for, last place in the division, but they're also not good enough to crack anywhere higher than 4. I would say it's 4 or 5 no matter what. I do still think they could potentially be considered a bubble team. A lot of the other teams at the bottom half of these divisions in the East are very bad. Including Orlando, unfortunately. Orlando, Washington, Charlotte, Detroit are all going to be that bottom 4 or 5. Another thing that we have to take into account is that Brooklyn did finish 4th last year in the division, but they also finished 4th with that many wins. Still all 40 win teams last year in that division, as we saw earlier from the last season's standings. But they do not have Kyrie Irving. They don't have Kevin Durant, and they don't have James Harden at the start of this season. So they have none of the big three that they had a year ago or a year and a half ago in James Harden's case. But they still have a young group of guys that are ready to compete. Dinwiddie is no slouch. You got Ben Simmons out he's on a war path. He's trying to prove his worth in the NBA again. It's a very low risk, high reward situation. Nobody expects anything from this guy again. They think we've seen everything that we have from him. And I think that the Nets still could compete. However, I don't think Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson and Nick Claxton and Dinwiddie again are going to be enough to get you into some sort of deep playoff run. You might be a bubble team, you might make it, and I know I'm contradicting myself by saying that Toronto could be a bubble team, but Brooklyn could not, and they're one is higher than the other in the divisional prediction standings, but I'm just not ready to commit to saying that Toronto is better than Brooklyn overall in this season. And I'm not sure I'm ready to commit that Brooklyn's totally out of the playoffs. So I'm touching both sides of this here. I think that both teams are going to be competitive. This is going to be a really tough division, as it always is. The Atlantic is one of the toughest in the NBA when everything is working and going well for each one of these teams, which I think at the start of this year, they're looking real healthy. Each team is very excited to get back full speed, and this is going to be an exciting year for this conference. But again, I know I'm contradicting myself, but this is what it looks like, and I hope it doesn't sound too silly, but yeah, I'll still stick with Toronto as my bubble team. All right, that's it for the Atlantic. We're going to swing into the next one. Hold on. Okay, let's look at the Southeast. My boys in this one. Something that we're going to cover a lot in this season of this podcast. Obviously, we know that I'm a big Orlando Magic fan. I'm going to approach this standings and rankings as best I can, unbiased. But unfortunately, sometimes the bias gets the best of me in this division. But I'm not going to do that this time. I will definitely have an issue with some stuff down the line in terms of who is good and who is not. But let's take a look at last year's standing. So this is the Southeast. The Heat with 44 wins last year, so they barely just over 500 and still went all the way to the finals. I don't know how they do it. I don't know what's in the water down there, but obviously something's working. And as a Magic fan, you hate to see it, but hey, I still think the Heat are going to be a good team this year. They're going to be a decent team. That felt dirty to say, but I still think they're going to compete because just, magically they always figure out ways to win. That's what they've always done. They rebuilt their team for a season and then they're back in the playoffs. Whereas, guys at the bottom half of this division, it takes them years, almost decades to rebuild like us. So, let's take a look at what I think this is going to look like for this year. Last year, it's not going to change that much. As we see from last year, again, Heat, Hawks, Wizards, Magic, Hornets. I still think a lot of that is going to stay the same, but my picks are right over here. At the top of the conference, you have the Miami Heat. Again, I think 1 and 2 is going to be the same, so Atlanta is going to be up there as well. Now, that's an interesting one because I don't know how Atlanta is going to deal without John Collins, with a potential ongoing locker room situation between DeJounte Murray and Trae Young. The coaching changed in the middle of the season last year. Clint Capella always seeming to, he's had a light injury past. I don't think it's anything really to write home about, but, he's been banged up and missed some games in key moments and everything. And again, this is a league where a lot of the guys that are of his skill set get phased out. It probably won't happen this year, but guys that are 2 feet and in are gonna have to. They're gonna have to stretch the game out a little bit. Rudy Gobert, Steven Adams, Capella. All 3 of those guys, 2 feet and in dudes that really can't stretch the floor that much, but they're unbelievable on the boards. So, Zubac's another one of those guys. He'll pull up every once in a while, but everybody knows what's going on with that. So Miami, Atlanta, I'm still sticking with that 1 and 2. Orlando, I'm saying 3. Now, here's why. I think we have the most upside in this division, and I'm not saying that biased wise, but if you look at these 5 teams and you think about where they each are in their trajectory of the season that they were in previous years, in terms of their core pieces returning, in terms of their experience together as a unit, being built by the draft, having consistent management and coaching throughout. Other than Miami, Orlando is really the only team that has their core pieces still together that weren't jumbled up a bunch. And we don't really have an addition on this team like a DeJounte Murray, who is definitely all-star caliber, but will shake things up in the locker room, as we know. Very outspoken now that he's left San Antonio. Obviously had the issue with Paolo in the Pro-Am a summer ago when he threw the ball at his foot in the middle of a Pro-Am. Like, it's a lot of stuff like that is gonna shake up the locker room. But what I went off on a tangent because DeJounte Murray fires me up, man. Great player. I love the guy, but sheesh. I think Orlando is on the rise, whereas a lot of these teams are about to hit the peak and fall down the hill. I know every Miami fan will tell you, like, we're fine, we're going to be good. But, like, the reality of it is this. The 3 guys that you have on your team that are core pieces, one of them can't play any defense. One of them is a big guy who can't shoot threes. And the other one is making $50 million a year or some shit like that at 37, 38. Your first option at point guard right now, Kyle Lowry, who's pushing 40. And I hate to tell you, unless you're LeBron James and pushing 40, I don't think we're going to get that crazy numbers out of you. So, they lost Strus. They lost Oladipo. They lost Gabe Vincent to LA. So they lost a lot of shooting. They lost a lot of options. Atlanta losing John Collins again. Washington losing Porzingis. Charlotte losing Miles Bridges again. I mean, guy can't stay out of his way. We'll get into Charlotte in a minute. I can't even think about that. But Orlando, I know I'm saying this. I've said this before, but this year I actually believe that, like, we have some dogs on this team. Our shooting is terrible. We have no shooting on this team whatsoever. Gary Harris is probably our best shooter, and when that is the case, that's a big problem. Jalen Suggs is going to most likely start at the 2 for us, so he'll be in that Dante Jones, Thabo Cephalosha kind of deal where he's in there to get the starter cold, play defense against the best guy on the opposite team, try to slow things down a bit. But we need more shooting. But in terms of the core pieces that are there, Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero, Wendell Carter, and Fultz, those other 4 starters, I think that's a good unit. I think it's versatile. I think we're very long. We're athletic. We hustle. We like to play defense. Some of us are better than others on that team, but we do what we can. And I don't think we're looking at a team that is going to finish worse than Washington this year. I don't think that. Washington is an issue. There's a lot to be said, but one thing that I know for sure, and I'll move on because there's really nothing else to say about this. I think Kyle Kuzma and Jordan Poole on the same team could potentially cause some big time issues with who else is getting the ball. That's all I'll say about that. But good luck to them this season. I hope it works out, but I hope it doesn't work out so well to where you surpass my boys because we're hungry. We're ready to get it. Charlotte, I mean, what do you want to say about this? MJ leaves. He is no longer in the upper management of the Charlotte Hornets. Jesus, thank God. It's been a long day. Been talking too much. But yeah, Kai Jones. I don't think I need to say anything else. And Miles Bridges, Brandon, that's not my gun Miller, who just got named in the wrongful death suit. Wild story. I won't get into it, but yeah, it just seems like they have a knack for drafting guys who are in the media and getting attention for the wrong reasons. And I get it. You get to the NBA, you get a little bit of money, you get a little you know, get a little fame, and things start to go wrong for the people who aren't ready to handle this. But I don't know if I know a team that's more consistently this fucked up every single year than Charlotte. Charlotte seems to have this fascination with guys that are going to draw media attention for the wrong reasons. And I mean, LaMelo Ball at the forefront of all of this is one of the biggest issues, obviously. We know the mouth of the South, LeVar Ball, is going to tell you that his son is the greatest player to ever live, but let's see it. Let's see it. Let's stay healthy. Let's do what we said we were going to do. Let's earn that title as, one of the best point guards in the world, or whatever LeVar Ball said, better than Jordan or some shit, whatever. Make up a quote, and he probably said it. But yeah, let's see it. I think Charlotte is a duh pick at the bottom of this, unfortunately, but it is what it is, man. You can't expect to be good if this continuously is a problem for your team in drafting these players. I'll tell you what, the Magic have had a dog shit track record in terms of who they draft. I will take 10 times over. I will take the guys that we picked and that got hurt, blew their knee out, hurt their ankle, whatever. I'll take injuries all day long over some shit like what's going on in Charlotte with all the negative attention. That's all I'll say. So, those are my picks for the Southeast. Let me know what you think in the comments. Again, not a lot of big shakeups here, but we're going to, hopefully I'll get some of these right. So, we're going to come back with the Central. Central's up next. Let's go. Let's get it. Okay, Central time. This is an interesting one for sure. Uh boy oh boy, Randy, you're not gonna like this one, buddy. I'm sorry to say, but yeah, this one. Let's take a look at last year's standings. We had the Bucks, Cavs, Bulls, Pacers, Pistons. The Bulls were a bubble team at 40 and 42. The Cavs, I mean, very impressive what they did last year. I got to say, having a young core like Evan Mobley and Jared Allen and Darius Garland, you bring in a vet like Donovan Mitchell who's been there, have a 3-and-D guy like Isaac Okoro in your starting lineup, and then Karis LeVert off the bench, who is honestly one of my favorite stories of all time in the NBA. If you don't know it, go look it up. I don't want to get into that now, but I think that what the Cavs did last year, winning 50 games with an entirely new player and a format and a system in place in this, I think is big time. 50 wins for them. And any time that you are winning 50 games in Cleveland and you don't have a guy named LeBron James on your team, it's pretty impressive. We know the Cleveland sports woes, and what they did last year, I hats off to you. Then we have Pacers Pistons at 4 or 5. Pistons, I mean, brutal. It was tough to watch. 17 wins last year. Not a lot to be excited about. Obviously, Cade Cunningham goes out. His sophomore slump was not a slump because he really didn't play. Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, and then Bogey showed up. Sadiq Bey was there for a little bit. Then they shipped him off to Atlanta. Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting year for Detroit. I think they have a lot of athletes and they got a lot of interesting pieces, but I don't know if it ever fits. So hopefully this year Detroit looks a little bit better. Unfortunately I still have them at the bottom of the standings for this year. I think that's kind of a duh pick. I'm sorry to say, but I'm hoping for some excitement out there. They have a young, exciting team with a lot of potential. And things could look better than 17 wins. That's for sure. I mean, I know it's hard to be worse than that, but it truly is something to build on there. At least they have some pieces that are at least a little bit of building blocks to success. Cade Cunningham is no slouch. That guy can hoop when he's healthy. So. All right, let's take a look at my standings for this year. They're right over there, as we know. And Yeah, I don't think it's any secret. I'm very high on Milwaukee this year, obviously, with the addition of Dame. I think that elevates Giannis's game and his hunger, and he's still pissed off at that reporter from last year calling his season a failure. So I think he's out for blood. Um, Now, the only question is Chris Middleton going to be healthy? Is he going to be a viable third option on this team? And there's other questions, but I think that is the most important one because he was essentially invisible last year for a large chunk of the season. And in a system like that, I think you have to have as many shooters around you as possible, and a damn good one at that as Chris Middleton. I mean, this guy, he's one of the premier shooters in the league. He is one of the best, off the ball, on the ball, working the 2-man game with him at times when Drew would be on the bench. He's solid. He's a good player. He can create and spot up. So I like his game. I hope he stays healthy because he truly is one of my favorite guys to watch when he's just out there cooking it and slinging. So I'm hoping that he stays there. Number 2, again, I got the Cavs. So again, the 1-2 is pretty much the same, other than the Atlantic, as we saw earlier with the Philly and New York swap. But 1-2s, as far as everything else goes, is pretty much the same in the East. Now the third is interesting because I like this team a lot. I like what they added. Um, and, I'm going out on a limb here. I think that the Pacers are going to be the third in this division. Now, I don't know what that means in terms of total wins. I haven't really looked at each individual schedule and mapped out games that I statistically think they could win. I just think they might be able to win more games than Chicago this year. I like Bruce Brown. I like the addition with that. I like Buddy Hield a lot. I've always liked his game. And I think Halliburton is on the way to an all-star season. No matter what Wally Zerbiak says or whatever he said last year, he's not an all-star. He might be. He's getting there, man. I believe he was one last year, or at least considered. I forgive my ignorance on that. I will correct it if needed, but I apologize. I'm spacing on that right now. But yeah, I like the Sirs, man. I like Miles Turner too. Miles Turner is one of those guys who he I know a lot of people in Indiana and Pacers fans of the like, they're not big on Miles Turner, but I think that what he can do when healthy is pretty special. He's one of the best shot blockers in the game. He can stretch. He can stretch the floor. He can hit a big three when you need to. Honestly, he's just he's a big body in there that's fresh, that needs to get touches, and he's gonna get them. He'll get those little dump offs in the dunker spots. He'll probably get some mid range stuff too, with a lot of it collapsing into or onto Halliburton. So we're gonna look for that. And he's not only a pick and roll but a pick and pop threat, which is nice. Again, I not really much else to say, but I just like him. I like the game. He passes the eye check for me. I know not a lot of people do. Or Pacers fans, not a lot of eye checks passed in the Miles Turner department. But I will say I think Indiana is number 3. Now that would mean that we got a shakeup here. I think Chicago is number 4. Sorry, Randall. What do you say about Chicago? I don't trust them. I don't think that they are as good as they look on paper. This is a team in 2K where you're like, oh shit, all right, okay, you got an 88, 90 overall, you got an 87, whatever it is. It's solid. You got a solid dunker, a great 3-point shooter, and a slasher, a world-class athlete in Zach LaVine. Now, I know he's on my team this year. I'm hoping for a big season, but is he the guy? Is he the trusted dude that's going to will you to a playoff spot, and is he going to earn that money? Is he going to get you there? Is he the dude? Or is DeMar DeRozan the guy who famously doesn't show up in the springtime and is kind of, limited in his game right now, in the sense that a lot of guys at his position can stretch and hit the three, but he lives in that mid range. A lot of the mid range guys, the two premier, mid-range dudes, obviously both in Phoenix, Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, they can knock down the threes. They can stretch the floor a little bit further out. Is DeMar DeRozan going to do that? Probably not. Not that that's a huge knock against his game, but it's a lot of, I don't know. I don't trust the guy. I don't trust this team, and I think that everything we've seen from Chicago, Lonzo Ball's not going to play. I mean, if he does, it'll be a fucking miracle. But I hope he does, because he's exciting to watch when healthy. Honestly, he's, as an NBA fan, you want to see him. You want to see people do well. You want to see people play healthy and do well. But Chicago filed a letter to the league asking to, I think, significantly cut his contract. I have to look up the stipulations and the actual verbiage of this contract, but from my understanding, what they were doing is writing the league off as saying, like, look, man, this guy's not going to play, and he's taking up a chunk of our change. Like, can we please get some sort of exception for this so we can sign somebody that's a little bit more competitive? And I don't know what ended up happening with that. I would imagine that they probably helped them out, but at the end of the day, the starting point guard situation in Chicago is a little bit of a problem. I like Kobe White a lot. Is he the guy that I can see starting as a point guard and on a playoff team? I don't think so. It's not looking great. So Levine might have to play some of the one, and shake that up there. Obviously, you got a lot of young guys coming off the bench. I do like Patrick Williams is still waiting to pop off. I like that guy. He's an athlete. He's tough. He plays physical. He's just not healthy. A lot of Bulls fans will tell you that Patrick Williams is the guy that they want to really succeed this year because of all the potential leading up to it. He was a top 5 pick in the draft a couple of years ago, and it's time. It's time to do this. So, again, I'm sorry if I'm making any mistakes on what I'm saying, but as far as I know, everything I said is accurate. Now, the one thing I know for sure that doesn't need to be fact checked is the other problem I have with Chicago, as a former member of my team, Nick Vucevic. I'm trying to be nice. I'll say it nicely. I think he fucking sucks at defense. And I think his effort should be questioned by the fans. I think his pay should be questioned by the fans. I think the fact that you have a 7-footer that doesn't contest shots, that doesn't box out, that doesn't read pick and roll coverages, that sits on his heels in every situation defensively, there's a reason why Patrick Beverley yelled at you. And as a Magic fan currently, Patrick Beverley's not a guy that's very high on my list. However, I do take his side when he was like, dude, you gotta get in help side quicker than that. You have to get to your spot. In order for us to succeed defensively and as a unit, as a team, to get stops, you have to be in the spot at the right time. He's got a piano on his back when he's in the paint. It's unbelievable watching this guy. I don't know how the Magic lasted for as long as they did. The guy was putting up 22, 23 again, whatever it was. I mean, close to it probably, and in a Magic uniform, but he was giving up so much more at the other end. So is this going to be the Chicago fan base that we know and love that's very passionately going to let you know that you fucking suck when you suck, and finally wake up and go, yo, this guy does not need to be playing as much as he is or getting paid as much as he is? Now, the only problem with that is that you don't have a viable backup. Andre Drummond, I mean, if you want a consistent guy that's going to be on Shaqtin' a Fool, holy shit, dude. I mean, this guy, he's, again, I said it in an earlier episode. Are we going to get the Andre Drummond that is playing like he did in Detroit, or are we going to get an Andre Drummond that's playing intoxicated? And as of right now, from what I've seen in the preseason, it's not looking too hot. He likes to get out there. He likes to say he's a great ball handler and get flashy with people on the perimeter, but oof, Maron, as they would say. My God, don't do that. Don't be that guy, buddy. Sheesh. Sorry, Chicago. I didn't mean to get so mean on you right there, but I'm rooting for you guys, and that's why I'm getting stern with you. Sorry. I'll calm it down. Because I don't think there's really anything to get that fired up about Detroit. Sorry to say, but Yeah, obviously the excitement is Cade Cunningham coming back. Is Bogey going to keep up his phenomenal year last year? Will we see another 20-point per game season from him, or are they going to use him as some trade bait and see what they can get out of him in terms of the greater good of the rebuild? I don't know, but all in all, I think Detroit is a dub pick at the last place in this division. They might be one of the worst teams in the league this year again, but I can assure you they're going to win more than 17 games. 17 is very low, and quite frankly, a bit unacceptable for a team that is that athletic. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Cade Cunningham coming back. That is it for the East. I want to thank you guys very much for listening. I'm sorry if you're a Bulls fan and things got a little dicey there, but just know that everything I said is out of love. Obviously, I want all your teams to do well, except for one. And we will see you guys next time with the Western Conference predictions. Who you got? Let me know. Leave a comment and see. Let me know if I did something supremely wrong. Give us a like, give us a subscribe if this is something that you'd like to help out. We appreciate it, and I'll see you guys next time. Game Blouses. Good night.
Game Blouses.